Ave cohort, good morning. It is time for Pilum Teaches DCS. We're getting situated here today and talking a little bit about some cluster bombs, spend a little bit of time with the bombing computer. And drop some high drags, maybe some Duranduls and stuff. We got a handful of things that we can do, and it should make for a good time. Just a moment while we are getting all situated. We will get startup going. Talk about where we're going and what we're doing today a little more specifically, but been a good week so far. Hope yours has been as well. All right. Get things flipped over here and we can be on our way. Make sure it's not on attack view still. It looks like it was. Let's go ahead and flip those things back over. We'll go ahead and finish loading out our aircraft. See how much we can take up in one load. Fusing, as always, is important. You want to make sure that your weapons are properly set and that you understand where the arming delay is. Like we have a 1.2 second primary function and then a 4-second optional function on our particular cluster bombs.
Copy.
Well, let's go ahead and get ourselves situated.
What target alignment do you want? Okay, stored heading it is. Cartridges are loaded. Rearming complete. If only the generators were going, then I'd look up.
Okay, so while Jester is taking care of that there for us, go a quick little walk around the aircraft. We have Mark 82 Snake Eyes on the outer pylons. On our inner special rails, we have a pair of Mark 20 Rockeye 2 cluster bombs.
And stripes aligned.
And on the center line, we have the Durandal, which is a French-produced bomb that we use as the BLU-107. That is a runway buster. You can see it's got a little two-stage motor here on the back. The first thing that it's got is a large drogue chute, which is going to arrest the forward movement of the bomb and pivot that bomb until it is nearly vertical. Then that's going to disconnect and the motor will ignite and drive this bomb into the concrete where it will blow up underneath the concrete. What that does is it creates a shallow area in the void space and sand under the runway that is much more difficult to repair. Because cratering a runway can be fixed in just a matter of hours, usually. You know, like if you've got somebody comes drumping through here, let's use Paiute Mesa here, come down here on this airstrip and you just drop strips and strips and strips of Mark 82s. You'll blast the concrete out. It will be unserviceable for a period of time, but mix up a little bit of concrete, throw it in the hole, level it out, and the runway's ready for service again. With the Durandal, it'll punch through the first layer of the concrete, blow up in the sand and rocky and dirt areas underneath it, and cause that to collapse in on itself, which creates a hole that has to be cleaned out first and then filled back in and then repaved. So while it can still be repaired, it is not quite as quick as dealing with the aftermath of a more traditional bombing run. So while we're waiting on our alignment, we're going to be visiting some old friends, namely our unattended target range, so that we can get kind of the maximal effect for what we're doing. And after talking a little bit with Dad over the course of last week, one of the things that he recommended was trying these things in more of a level type bombing mode and see if maybe that pattern is a little bit better than the dive that we've been doing.
Go primary sync now. All right, ready to taxi.
So we're going to give that a shot, which will give us a chance to work with the bombing computer.
Roger.
First thing we're going to do is pull up the bombing table. We're going to be using a direct delivery mode with the Mark 20. I want to have about a 500 knot true airspeed on that. And our release altitude is going to be excuse me, sorry. Going to be about 8,000 feet. And also important is our target altitude, which is about 3,200 feet, or 3,240 feet. And we're going to try and do it in level, which is not giving me any good sight depression there, so we might have to change some of our parameters on that. Yeah, level may not be a good method there for us. But we'll aim for about 30 degrees and a release altitude of about 8,000 feet and a true airspeed of about 550 knots. So according to this, our sight depression should be 130 mils. We're just going to go and preemptively set that.
Okay.
It's not awful. We can work with that. All right. Go and taxi on up. And we'll start making our way over.
This flight gonna be treetop? Roger.
Kind of a foolish question there, Jester, as I've got snake eyes on the plane, but, you know, you do you. And Durandals, actually. A lot of the high drag stuff is usually employed lower altitude. Let's go ahead and set up some of our other information here, like our ripple pattern and ripple distance. We're going to use our usual 0.2 to 0.25 millisecond distance. And we'll release some pairs, which will give us 2 impulses off the rock eyes to try and hit the target. It's kind of nice being back in a jet. I've spent much of the last couple of days playing with the new Corsair.
Copy that. Okay, steering set for diversion.
And depending upon how we're looking for time, we might spend a little bit of time going through startup and a little bit with that. But we're going to get through today's lesson with cluster bombs and high drags and everything else first. Then we'll have some fun. Okay, here we go.
Engine's good. Airspeed's coming alive. Knots. 100 knots. Gears moving. Flaps up. Gear up. All right, those are some nails. 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it's looking good, so let's go ahead and get up to altitude. Alright, so we're going to be using direct mode, as we can see on the wheel. Bombs are selected, quantity is set to 2, and our ripple distance is not quite 0.25, more like 0.225. Which at our airspeed should give us a spacing of about 100 feet or so between the pops of the cluster. Go and get up here to cruise altitude, and then we'll pull open the bombing table and talk a little bit about that.
Mud, 1 o'clock. AAA.
I'll bump up here with a little bit of power. That should be fine. Our autopilot is set, so let's pull open the table. We do that with right control B by default. And this bombing table is extremely useful. It provides all of the different kinds of release modes. If you're going to do an offset attack, loft, an instrument-based offset, WRCS AGM-45 shots. And all of these things are important because for the Wizzo, jumping into the rear office for a second, this panel here is the Weapon Release Computer Control, WRCS. And what you're basically doing with about half the things on that bombing table is telling Jester where you're looking to go, how you're looking to get there, and all of the other different target information and data for the very basic computer that's in the aircraft. For our purposes, though, we're going to be using these in direct, so we have direct mode selected.
Okay,
It's important to say
3 o'clock.
what kind of bomb is being used.
Nails, 3 o'clock.
As that will change the coefficient that Jester may use in terms of where the bomb is supposed to go and how long it's going to get there. Run-in speed is in true airspeed, or true knots, which the true airspeed indicator is up here behind the gun and missile armament panel. In the Wizzo seat, it's a lot easier to see. The Wizzo seat is right next to the ground speed. And right now these two numbers are very close, but as we increase in altitude, the indicated airspeed will be less than the actual true indicated airspeed. Or indicated rather will be less than true. The release altitude, at what point do I want to let the bombs go? Important that my altimeter settings are correct for that, but I've left them in default, so we should be okay there. The target's altitude is important because both of these are in MSL, and Nevada is a little bit of a high desert. Like there are parts of North Las Vegas and Las Vegas and everything else that are between, 1,750 and about 2,000 feet, depending upon what part of town you're in. But as you get into middle and northern Nevada, like this is 3,200 feet at our target area. If we go all the way out here to Tonopah, it's up at 5,000 feet, and those things make a difference. It's one of the things, too, that you can look at real closely if you play on the Afghanistan map, is there are places in Afghanistan where the combat is taking place upwards of 8,000 and 9,000 feet high MSL. And what that does in combination with it being warm is it gives you a lot less lift and a lot less power. It's one of the encounters that we had in Vietnam, especially, another place that's like jungle-type temperatures, high and hot conditions, things of that nature, where jets didn't have the power, despite being, rated for it in a much more temperate type zone and everything else, to be able to lift very heavy loads up without a whole lot of extra help. Because those high temperatures and high altitude and everything else does affect performance, and DCS does model that. So it's important for us in this bombing table to make sure that the release altitude that I'm actually letting go of the bombs of is accurate, and the target altitude is as accurate as I can to within tens of feet. Target aircraft weight, you can kind of reset that as we go. It makes little bits of difference, but not a whole lot of difference in the grand scheme. So as long as that is, fairly close, you should be okay. And then a dive angle. What dive angle am I going to go in at? Setting these will get you the next set of information, which is the derived information. Based on the numbers you have put in here, a sight depression of 130 mils and a bomb range of about 24,000 feet from the target, measured as the crow flies, should net a flight time of about 36 seconds in onto the target area and hit the target in the center of the pipper. With a giant asterisk on the end of that, because you have to fly 550 knots true, and you have to release at 8,000 feet, and you have to be at a dive angle of 30 degrees for all of these things to be accurate. This is where something like DT mode, which utilizes the radar to automatically calculate a lot of this information for the jet, really comes into its own as a fast response or a fast cast type system, where direct is really kind of a mixture of both Kentucky windage, and you have to fly certain parameters in a certain way at a certain angle at a certain time in order for all of those factors to be accurate and that pipper to be correct. The further you are off in any of those things, if you're too fast, if you release too high or too low, your dive angle isn't quite 30 degrees, then the bombs are not going to hit dead center of the pipper. They are going to be off one way or another. And then it doesn't even take into account yet as far as the wind goes. Some of these other modes, though, like the WRCS AGM-45, has an option here to tell Jester and close. If I was trying to do a loft shot with the Shrike, it's very important for me to know what the target's altitude is, so that way when it draws the triangle and tries to figure out the trigonometry about where should I loft this missile to give it the best chance of falling into that 3-degree window where it can see it, it needs to know where the ground is. And if that math is off, then the missile is going to miss, either by being too long or too short. Target find works very similar. Depending upon what bomb you're selecting, it will automatically calculate the drag coefficient for you, the bomb range, the ROR slant range as far as what the slant range indicator should save when it's a good release point. Those are all important things. The last block down here is the pattern, which you can set your release interval as far as what you're telling Jester you're going to be using, which if I was going to use 0.25, I could put that in there. The interval multiplier is in normal mode because you have an interval multiplier here. That's in normal or times 10. And as far as bomb on target, what that means is in a string of bombs, if I release 4 or 5 bombs, which bomb in that string do I want to be the center point? Generally speaking, if you're looking to bomb a target that is, I know where the start of this point target is, I want it to be there, and I'm going to bomb in a line rolling away from it. Great. You want number 1 to be the bomb on target. But if you look down in an area and go, okay, that's a SAM site, and there's all kinds of crap forward of my target and aft of my target as I'm rolling in on it. Well, rather than try and pinpoint the very bottom of the target and hope for the best, you can go, what do I need to die? I need the SAM's radar to die. So I'm going to aim at the center of the site. And I want bomb number 3 to be the bomb that hits dead center. Well, it will calculate a release advance for you. So it will tell you, it'll give you a little beep to say, push the button now. You do it at that point, and the 3rd bomb in your stick will hit the center of the target. And if you happen to drop an odd number of bombs, like 5, you'll have 2 bombs hit before the target at your spread interval that you set, and 2 bombs hit after the target at the spread interval that you set, with the 3rd bomb, in theory, hitting dead center of whatever it is you're aiming at. All right, so let's go ahead and close this bombing computer out. We are very close to our target area. Morning, iHort. But very close, I mean, we're like 17 miles out, so we still got a little bit of time. But what we're going to try and do is push for about 550 knots in a 30-degree dive. And as we pass through 8,000 feet, we should be more or less on target. I was going to try and use these in a level mode, but unfortunately the bombing computer doesn't provide me information for true level release. We're going to drop the pair of rock eyes there first. And our target is going to be this this line of vehicles here. we'll see how we do. Take the plane out of autopilot.
Got a new bogey, left 15, 28 miles, 23,000.
Appreciate the follow there. Okay, let's roll in on our target. Remembering that I'm aiming for 550 and an 8,000 foot release. Just coming up very quick. Those skeets popped extremely early. And it's hard to tell where they actually ended up. Well, because we weren't in good parameters. We'll try it again with our second pair. And 17,000 feet. We're aiming for a release at 8.
Mud, 12 o'clock, SA3.
And about 30 degrees down. And pickle. Get the feeling those didn't do it either. We'll see that in TAC view. Without flying the parameters, that can be rough to do. All right, we're going to set to a 4-bomb release. It's also why I tend to do a lot of my bombing work with DT, as the radar allows me to be a lot more accurate than going by feel. But high drag bombs are kind of all about feel, and there's a couple of good techniques that we can use as expedients to put the bombs very nearly where they need to go every time. The first one goes all the way back to being on the ground, which was why we put a delay on the fuse, and even though it's a quarter second, that should be enough. Our goal here is we want to be low enough to avoid fire, which is the whole point behind bringing high drags in the first place, is that you're going to be like hopping over the top of a hill or a low rise or part of a town, something. You're going to use as cover on the way in, and the fins or the ballots on the back of the bomb will slow it down enough to get it away from the aircraft that the explosion of the bomb itself doesn't kill you, because you're going to be dropping them very low. It is possible to overspeed the bomb. So I generally try to aim between 400 and 500 knots. And at about this height. It's important to drop them in a stick of, 2 to 4. And as the target's about to pass under the nose, we push the trigger. And we've got some target destruction. While the aircraft is pointed in a safe direction, we're just going to go ahead and come on down here and see how we did. That is the entire vehicle group destroyed. And with the target just about to pass under the nose, the first bomb in that stick at that airspeed condition landed right in the middle of the group. Second bomb landed just forward of that. Third bomb landed still very, very proximal to that. And the fourth bomb, not so much a waste, but was a little bit longer. And that is more or less what we're looking for. We're going to run in on the SAM site next, do the same thing. Have a repeat showing. SAM site, like an SA2, very common target for something like Snake Eyes. Same with convoys, larger area targets. Treat this a little bit like we're coming in to make an attack and trying to use things for cover against the SA2, as he would have shot at us a little bit by now. We've got that little bit of a hill. It's going to be just about all we need to stop the radar from illuminating. Anything in between you and the target is sufficient. Maintaining our speed about 500 knots. Altitude's looking good, and just before it gets under there, Pickle. And as we point our plane in a safe direction, we'll come down and take a look at that. And really couldn't have got that any more perfect if I tried. First bomb landed just on the outside of the whole pattern. The second and third bombs hit in the middle of the entire site, and the fourth bomb landed just on the other side of it, eliminating the entirety of the site. Now we're using Mark 82 Snake Eyes here, but this technique works with Mark 82 Balutes. It works with the SAMP series of high drag bombs. Just about any high drag bomb, that's the kind of parameters that you want to be in. You want to be very low altitude, somewhere between 300 and 500 feet above the ground when you put your release in. You want to be level when you get over the top of the target. And you want to be doing somewhere between 400 and 500 knots. Much faster than that, and the bombs are probably going to overshoot using this method. Much slower than that, you're probably going to disintegrate your own aircraft. Got another diamond-shaped group of targets there, so we're just going to roll on down and try and take that out. Same thing. The thing with this too is that you're almost never dropping singles for high drag bombs like this. It's technically possible, as it is with anything else, but and Pickle. Technically possible to drop them in singles, but you're kind of wasting the effort, because the main drive behind doing something like a high drag pass like that is that you boom over the target and leave very quickly. You know, I've been climbing and looking over the shoulder to watch the bombs and their effects for your benefit, but if I was flying this one a little bit more for real, we leave the BDA to somebody else. I don't have any more of the high drag bombs on board, but we're going to just make the call as if we do. We're coming into our target area. A little over 400 knots. Got the SAM site here. And pickle. A little bit of countermeasures on their way out the door. Stay very low altitude and very quick. Using natural terrain features to our advantage as we exit the target area. Okay, we got about 4,000 pounds left in the tank for now. So what I'm going to do is choose a stretch of roadway here, and we're going to treat that as a runway and use the Durandal. And I think we're going to go a little bit south towards Pahrump and use this little stretch of road here. Go over the hump, as locals say. Followed almost immediately by, yeah, I guess it is fireworks time. We could go. Okay, let's go ahead and do a quick pause here, and we'll talk a little bit about the system again, because we are going to be making some changes. First and foremost, we need to do a little bit of basic math, by which I almost always mean grab a reading, go look something up, and convert it real quick, because that's going to be important. So in our hypothetical mystery runway here of this highway, let's just go ahead and drag out a line here and look at it and go with, yeah, about a mile. 5,280 feet. It's a little stretch of road. Why is that important? Well, because we're going to be doing a little bit of conversions here on that one. A little bit of division, and the first step with this one is 5,280 divided by how many bombs I'm dropping. I'll be dropping 6 in this case. So we want a spacing of about 880 feet in order to provide full runway coverage to our mystery runway. Taking another quick gander at Paiute Mesa. Actually, no, Paiute Mesa is not going to be as good of a, it's like a Tonopah. All right, so let's talk about what makes up a runway. The first thing is we have the runway itself, usually easily identifiable by all the little black tire marks and oil marks and things that are on the road, and usually by its markings. In this case, it's a full-fledged, honest-to-God Air Force base, so it's got markings in here for everything. Dotted line down the center, other little markings off-center, runway numbers. In this case, we have a parallel taxiway, which could be useful to hit, and if you had a second element, they could drop on that while you drop on the runway, just for maximum penetration and coverage and maximum destruction. But the big thing that we're looking at, especially as a single ship encounter, is we want craters on this runway that are far enough apart that no matter what direction somebody tries to use on this runway, they are not going to be able to get the airspeed they need with any kind of a useful combat load to come up to get you, nor is there enough runway here for most aircraft to come down and land safely without running into a crater and blowing themselves up at speed. Something like a Viggen or a ballsy F-14 driver or anybody with a drogue chute who decides to come in super low and super slow, although most of the aircraft that use drogue chutes can't come in that way, which is why they have one in the first place. They might be able to stop short if you don't put craters everywhere. Usually if I'm coming up for a Durandal mission, I'm going to come up with a complete loadout for it, which is usually 12 bombs, which gives me a little bit more saturation space. But for our hypothetical mile-long runway, we're looking at wanting to place a bomb roughly every 800 feet. What does that all mean for this? Well, having flown the Tomcat a lot, 0.25 milliseconds roughly works out to about 100-foot spacing. So what I'm going to end up doing is dragging that timer up a little bit. First I'm going to set to all 6 bombs. And I'm going to probably put this one somewhere between like 45 and 50 millisecond impulses.
All right, got a new bogey. Right 15, 34 miles, 9,500.
I'm going to go ahead and have Jester give me a marker here for the middle of our hypothetical runway. It's a nice runway. That runway number totally isn't right for the direction that the road is, but stipulate to it.
Got this. Okay, that's a new bogey. Right 517 miles, 19,000. Positive IFF target is friendly. Diversion steering set.
But we're going to be coming after this in roughly the same way that we would for like a Mark 82 or Snake Eye type pass. With the primary goal being that we want to be lined up with our hypothetical runway in the runway's direction in order to make sure that our bombs are on the target. Same thing, we're going to get down to roughly this altitude, somewhere between 450 and 500 knots. Our hypothetical runway would be a little better than this, but we will go ahead and release those. Now, our runway here is extremely, extremely narrow. That is not the way most runways tend to be, and they tend to be a little wider, so the fact that we missed by a little margin, that's within the confines of making that work as a runway. Barely, but go with it. But as you saw, there's a little motor on the back of that fires. And with those craters in the runway, if somebody was trying to come in and land through here, there's any number of things that they could hit before coming to a stop, which makes the runway not useful for them, which is the whole point behind dropping the weapon there in the first place. We'll go ahead and grab some more weapons. And we'll make an actual pass there on Paiute Mesa. Our tack in for Creech 87. Okay, while we're cruising over here, a little bit more of a navigational lesson there for us. TACAN is a tactical air navigation system. Operates in two bands, X-ray and Yankee, X and Y.
Bud, 9 o'clock. AAA.
And it is both an active system for a transmitter and a passive system for a listener, depending upon whether or not you're in just receive or transmit receive. And it basically allows someone who's listening on a particular band or channel to have a needle in the aircraft point to where the source of that signal is, so long as you've got line of sight between you and the system. So understandably, it's something that can lose signal if you are, trying to look for something that's behind a mountain. Whether it's another friendly aircraft that you're trying to hop channels with and look for, or a carrier that's out in the water somewhere and you're cruising inland and low altitude or lower altitude or have high mountains on the shoreline. Generally speaking, most military bases will have a TACAN beacon of some kind. There's also objects that you can place in the mission editor that act as a TACAN beacon, like a little portable one. Aircraft carriers use TACAN a lot, as there's hard to navigate over the water with nothing that's featureless if you're just doing a cat patrol in the middle of the Atlantic or the Pacific. Tankers will have them as well. You can also use them in yardstick mode, where one aircraft will be on one channel and another aircraft will be on a channel 63 channels higher or lower than the target.
And gear, flaps, pressure, warning lights, anti-skid.
So there is relationships there that you can utilize for additional types of navigation and making accurate tack turns and things of that sort. Most air bases, at least from what I've seen here in DCS, and probably a real-life practice too, since those two things tend to mirror for things like that, tend to use X-band. Which frees up the same channels in the Y-band for use for aircraft. If you have two signals that are operating in the same channel, for example, the TACAN over at Nellis is 12 X-ray here on this map. So if I had a tanker that was also utilizing 12 X-ray, the TACAN system could become confused and it could point to whichever the two signals it believes to be closer or stronger. So if I was intending to navigate to one, I could be aiming at the other. So it's important from the mission editor standpoint, or from the, trying to reconvene with my flight standpoint, that you choose channels and bands that are not currently being in use somewhere else. I'm going to leave my fuel level at the same here, but I'm going to go ahead and just put on some tanks. The Durandal can be carried on the special weapons pylon, which allows me to carry defensive weapons.
Request refueling. Request rearming. Copy.
My plan here is to go ahead and take off from Creech
Refueling complete.
And we're going to make a pass on an actual runway. Shoot up to about 8,000 pounds or so.
Rearming complete.
Once we get weight off wheels. I'm not usually a proponent of flying against the wind, but with J79s, it's just us here, so we will at least point towards where we need to go in the first place. Be a little more expedient for everybody's time. Go ahead and set our ripple quantity selector to 12. We've had some folks ask from time to time, you know, what do I use as a gauge for how many bombs I want to drop? And it's kind of a mix of factors for me. Broadly speaking, if I'm dropping something like 500-pound class or 250-pound class Mark 82s or Mark 81s, those are going in at least pairs. The idea with that being is that it's a small bomb, you know, at least compared to some of the other things that I can drop. And I really want to make sure that I bracket the target with the bombs to ensure that the target that I hit is destroyed. If I'm dropping something like a GBU or anything else that's guided, those I want to drop in single because it's a waste otherwise. I'm dropping a precision instrument on something. I don't need to saturate a target area. But if I'm dropping iron bombs, I'll usually pitch 82s in at least pairs. If the target that I'm looking at is
Airspeed off the peg.
potentially a little broader or has a lot of extra stuff with it, like
100 knots.
part of a SAM site, I usually drop 2 pairs or 4 bombs.
All right, those are some nails. 2 o'clock.
And again, just as iHort is throwing down range for that, the reason for it is accuracy. The less accuracy that you have, the more bombs you kind of need to throw at the problem to ensure that you hit the target and make it go away. Otherwise, you're going to have to come back in and make repeat passes and everything else, and every additional pass over the top of a target area is greater risk to you. You know, the first time you make a pass over a target area when everything is cold, the odds are the defenders, especially if you surprise the hell out of them, aren't going to have their systems up. They might have to warm up their SAM site radars. They might have to get their gun platforms into action and start swiveling around to the expected directions that you're looking to come from. You know, if it's a cold target area, the odds are pretty good that those people might be in a colder state, you know, not ready for combat. However, after the first pass, they are very much awake and actively looking for you, and puts you in a position where you might come under additional attack for more than one pass. Yes, I was absolutely correct there in that regard too. The F-4 really is kind of the peak material of, we have a target, how many planes are we going to send at it, versus I've got one plane, he's got 5 bombs, and they're all, you know, GPU series, the GPS guidance and laser terminal, and I got JTACs all in the area for the different area. All I got to do is fly one plane out there and let these bombs go, and they will go hit their targets on their own. That's why when you're looking at like footage from World War II involving, or not World War II, Vietnam War. Wow, I've got Corsair on the brain. Vietnam War with the F4s like Discovery Wings, which is a fine series that you can watch on YouTube. That is a definite harken back to my childhood. You'll see whole flights, dozens of F-105s, dozens of F4s, and they're all dropping, 12 bombs a stick in some cases. At the same time, World War II bomber fashion, trying to saturate one target and ensure its destruction. Alright, we're back up to 6,000 pounds, but those tanks are empty.
Got a new bogey. Left 20 degrees, 26 miles, 22,500.
So we'll just get rid of the extra weight.
Target is a buddy. Good IFF. Bud, 2 o'clock, SA3.
Right, no, you're not wrong in that regard, but even against a single static type target, like a bridge, you send in dozens and dozens of planes and drop dozens and dozens of bombs trying to eliminate a target. At least until we got things like Walleye and everything else, but even then, there's like 11 bombs that took down the bridge that we saw in that video featuring our esteemed companion Major White. But that's generally why I will do it, is, I want to drop somewhere between 2 and 4 bombs in most cases so that I can saturate the most number of targets and ensure the target's destruction. Something like a runway like this, I'm coming in here to attack this runway. It's going to be one pass haul ass. It's going to be everything all at once, or nothing. So in this particular instance, all I'm coming up to do is make the one run, so we're going to set it to 12. The other settings that we have on this dial, apart from number of bombs, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, 18, we have continuous, which is keep dropping at the selected interval or keep shooting in the case of a rocket, until such time that I either run out of weapons or let my finger off the trigger. Salvo, which in the case of a rocket pod especially, is going to fire one rocket or one dispenser or one whatever from each of the pylons in a continuous mode until I'm out of weapons. So it's a very quick way of shooting up all of the rockets in a pod rather than just the outers, then just the middles, and just the inners. And then P, which is one per pylon, one impulse per pylon, or whatever it is, rather than pairs. So it's a common thing to miss with the F4. So for example, with P selected, if I had all 5 pylons on, whatever I've got on the wings, it will drop one unit at the same time from each of the 5 pylons simultaneously. Alright, we are getting close to where we need to be. Start our run.
New bogey, left 30, 45 miles, 10,500.
Here's our runway. So we're going to overshoot our turn just a little bit here so we can line up on it.
It's a bandit.
And we're going to drop it down low. We have some advantage in attacking this runway, some natural terrain features, a little bit of hills there on each of the different sides. This one isn't defended, but if it was, First off, being this close, any of the radar-guided SAMs would have already shot at us, so there's that. But if there were gun platforms or infrared SAMs or closer-in SAMs like an SA-8, we might still be at the fringes of their range, in which case I can use this lovely mound of dirt to put it between me and the emitting radar. All right, we are on our run now. Speed is about 500 knots. Radar altimeter is set to about 500 feet. It's going to make corrections because the straighter we are on our approach, the more of this runway is going to see destruction. Pop up just a little bit to about 750 feet and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. For our benefit. We'll go down and have a look here in just a minute. If I was going to go direct for Creech, we could, but there's an SA-3 site that we would overfly there, and I'm not about that life, so we're going to try and miss that. We can come back and visit him when we've got some more weapons on board. Put the plane in autopilot so that we are cruising towards home and not dying as we come down here to take a peek. So I started dropping just as that runway was getting underneath the glass and just starting to get under the nose. And here we go. We got bombs. We got bombs everywhere along this runway. And for somebody coming down straight down the middle, there is still some ample space here where they could possibly land. So it wasn't quite as on center as I would have liked. But if they wiggle or wobble or deal with a crosswind or anything and they start moving off to one side, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. I came through with a couple of aircraft, like in an echelon left type formation. We could have really saturated this one because another set of craters at about the same spacing on the opposite side of it. This runway would be way, way, way out of commission. But this does mean that anybody using this runway now has to contend with the fact that it is not open pavement, open terrain. And that's the kind of destruction that we want with the Durandal. Somebody coming down on that, if they roll their wheels through that bomb crater, it will destroy the aircraft at even moderate speeds, like high taxi rates or, just starting to come into land or during your rollout. At low speeds, it can even pose a problem of damaging the aircraft, breaking landing gear, blowing tires. Whole messes of problems for the aircraft. As far as when to employ them, generally you want the airfield as clean as possible. So, you don't want a whole mess of defenders down there because dropping things for that long over the top of the runway, you're going to be vulnerable for a period of time. Even if I do everything right, coming in on the approach, low altitude, using hills, mask my approach, doing the basics of stealth as far as that's concerned, I'm still over the top of this runway for the better part of 10 to 12 seconds, flying in a straight line, dropping bombs. It is heaven for anybody in a ZU platform pointing a gun up at the sky.
Hey, what's our fuel?
Just like the simulations. But if you can clean things off the runway, or any of the defenders that are, in direct observation of the runway, sneak that plane in, make the run over the top of it, and it is effectively disabled. If you're doing something a little more modern, you can use the high penetration GBUs, like the 31 Bravo, the big penetrator and everything else, and just look at it with a targeting pod and go, I want to bomb here and here and here. A lot of places that I tend to put those, going back to our example runway here at Tonopah, I'll put them, at like 25, 50, and 75% marks on the field, so that, somebody has hope as they start cruising down there, and then bang, right in the middle of the runway. Now, the other thing that I tend to aim at are these little alleyways, the short taxiways towards the active ends of the runway and the runway itself, either to taxi on or taxi off. Because these are choke points that all of these aircraft are going to use, and for something like, say, a strike platform, very heavy, very bomb-laden, wants as much runway as possible. If I put a bomb here and a bomb here, well, maybe not on this one because there's a lot of extra concrete they can just get around it, but in the hypothetical scenario that it's a narrow little span like this one, I put a couple of bombs there on it. Now this runway can't be used in the direction into the wind where it's safest for a big heavy strike platform to take off. Your fighters might still be able to use it, either with a midfield takeoff or whatever, but Tonopah is also a very, very excessively long runway for something like that. Let's see if we've got another one we can use. Not North Las Vegas, there's too much pavement there. Not Henderson Executive. Yeah, we'll look at Gene. Now, Gene's got a couple of runways, but there's not very many taxiways onto the runways. You could bone those if you've got a sufficient number of gear and equipment, and render the runway just as unserviceable. All right, let's settle in at Creech, and we will have a brief span of changing tack. Carry on with today's lessons and some fun time stuff.
And gear, flaps, pressure, warning lights, anti-skid.
Checklist was almost too late there, buddy. All right.
Roger.
Like I said, let's change gears here while we got some folks on, because I know there's other things that y'all want to see. And open up our next mission there. We'll spend a little time with a new friend. Those Tiny Tims are hilarious to shoot. I'm having some fun with those. While I have a minute here, just a couple minutes there to thank the new followers there, Fenkist and Scintillery 7877. Appreciate that. All right. So we are here with a new friend. We're not floating in space, I promise. It's just loading all the textures real quick. Should not take very long. Pause things for a minute here while it's doing all that, and puts the wood and steel underneath our wings. Layer at a time. Welcome, folks, to the F-4E Corsair. Gull-winged aircraft. We're going to do our best, was it George Peppard? I don't think it was George Peppard. That's A-Team. Robert Conrad. That's the one I was looking for. Best Robert Conrad impression here as we do a little bit of Bob Bob Black Sheep off the carrier deck. It's an old TV show for the younger crowd that's out there. And for the older crowd, take your ibuprofen. It's probably time. Very powerful aircraft, long-serviced aircraft. The variant that we have and comes with some extra flavorful things. Got 3 50 caliber machine guns in either wing for a total of 6, very similar to the Mustang. We can carry HVAR rockets. We can carry 250, 500 pound, and 1,000 pound bombs. 3 stations under the center of the fuselage. We can also carry the BAT radar guided bomb, which was one of the first completely automatic targeting, or not targeting, but completely automatic guided weapons that we used very late in the war, primarily against like ships, because those are the kinds of targets that are big enough and clear enough out in the open water to really make that work. That's a 1,000 pound class weapon. The Tiny Tim rockets, which are also in the 1,000 pound category, are like 590 something kilograms each. Those are very heavy. Good dogfighter. Difficult and notorious for getting back onto a boat, especially early war. And as another asset that we got with that, we have the Essex class carrier. An axial deck, Some 17 little wires there stretched out from aft to fore with places for you to try and arrest it. Plenty of 20 millimeter and 40 millimeter autocannons for air defense. 5-inch dual purpose guns. It's a wild time. Now, we are extremely heavy for our aircraft, so we're going to need to be careful on our takeoff, but we're going to roll through startup, and we'll get up in the air, and we'll see what kind of mischief and trouble we can get into. Let's go ahead and unpause. I'm going to set our fuel selector to the main tank. Move my propeller governor handle to the minimum position. I'm going to go full mixture initially to work the battery switch, the fuel pump switch, prime the tank a little bit, and then bring the mixture back down. Uncover the starter, hold the brakes, action the starter, and we forget a little bit about the magnetos, so let's go ahead and set those. And as the propeller turns on, maintain holding the starter, move the mixture lever forward, and let go of the starter. Giving her just a little bit of extra RPM to keep the engine running. But at this point, we're waiting on our oil temperature gauge to come up into good minimums, and for everybody else in front of us to move along. While we're doing that, we'll make it a little bit quieter here on the deck. Talk about everything we got here in front of us. We have our RPM gauge here on the left, altimeter, manifold pressure. We have an inertial navigation compass and a radio compass. The compass facing itself does not move. The needle points to where the thing is to be facing. Water injection warning light, stall light, carburetor air temperature light for when we're using the supercharger. Vertical speed indicator, airspeed indicator, oil temperature, flight director, or the gyro horizon rather, but same sort of difference. Clock, fuel gauge down here on the right, another fuel gauge for the main tank in terms of gallons, hydraulic pressure availability, battery voltage, fuel pressure, accelerometer, our rocket master arming switch, and single and salvo modes, our radio, channel selectors, our lighting rheostats and master switch, heat and defroster, oil cooling, intercooler, and engine cowls, those cooling flaps, which will be very important as we don't want to overheat our engine. Fuel tank selector, trim tabs, wing spreader, wing lock, tail lock, manual releases for our pylons up front, the emergency jettisons. Of course, the throttle column that includes the supercharger, mixture control lever, and propeller governor. We have our deck cord and canopy jettison handle, our FFAR rocket switch, which is not used for Tiny Tim. We'll cover that in a second. Flap indicator, emergency manual release for the drop tanks, gear selector, gun arm and charging handles. And then across here at the top we have the master arm, our gun selectors for outboard, middle, and inboard, our gun sight brightness. And on the right hand side we have the arming panels for our 3 under the fuselage hardpoints. Pylon is the center, left and right, and of course the arming selector for bombs. Using the tiny TIMs, they're going to be either on your left or your right. If you want to shoot them both together, have both switches up. Otherwise, only leave one switch up and use your pickle bomb to release anything off of those hardpoints. The centerline pylon is done through the pylon selector there, where it says pylon release. For the weapon release, any of these switches that are up, as soon as you push the button, they're going to go, and they're going to go all at once. There is no ripple settings or anything along those lines. So if you don't mean to drop both bombs or shoot both rockets or what have you, then don't select it. Alright, we are just about up to temperature, so I'm going to go ahead and work the cowl flaps here a little bit. And bring the intercooler and oil down to about 50%. And we're waiting on the rest of our friends to take off here. Roll forward just a little bit, so my wing is out of the way of my friend's propeller for my wingmen. And I'm going to go ahead and spread the wings. Watch that mechanism work. And you'll note that that wing is not completely set. So what we got to do is push the pin down to lock the wing down and close the upper pins. That pin fell into place, a little red one there, and the flap closed. So now we can pull this down, and that will stop that alarm. Now we are heavy as all hell, so I'm going to go ahead and go full flaps. And we're going to make sure that we set our takeoff trim, which there is a panel here that tells you. And we set the head tracking just a little bit. I can look at that better. Rudder aileron elevator. 6 right wing down, 1 nose up. Use our rudder trimmer there. About 6 right. Right wing down. About 6 right. And about 1 degree nose up. The double wasp on the Corsair torques like an SOB. And that was one of the reasons why it was so touchy for new pilots or inexperienced pilots without a whole lot of stick time in the plane to cause a lot of problems, because you get into a situation behind the boat where you need power and you need power now, or you're going to end up in the back of the fantail. And you'd have a pilot advance the throttles and everything all the way forward, and then suddenly, without being ready for it, over-torque the aircraft and just twist the thing over until it fell into the sea. Among its less colorful nicknames are things like the Ensign Eliminator, as it was a little bit notoriously difficult to fly, at least take off and land with. Alright, so we are full power, and as heavy as we are full flap, so we can try and maintain up off the deck. And there we go. I'm going to leave the landing gear down just for a minute as we get some positive rate. A little over 90 knots, going to pull the wheels up. And milk the flaps up just a little bit. 110 knots, a little more. adjust our trim away from takeoff. Thank you, Real Sim Pilot. Appreciate the follow, and also welcome, Rum Runner. Sounds like our Spitfires and Mozzies are getting closer. Yeah, it's been a good Saturday so far. Let's go and reduce some of that engine RPM a little bit. And we'll start climbing, heading towards the coastline here of Normandy. This is one I just kind of threw together and have some fun with. I haven't done all the things that I usually do in the mission editor, like make the fog of war accurate to things that you can see and all of that nonsense, but we're here for fun, so that's what we're doing. On a little bit of altitude so we can get that supercharger moving, and as we get leveled out, I will uncage that horizon. I did know that, yes. And in this particular F-4, you can even adjust them a little bit and fine-tune it. It's actually not as bad of a frame rate hit for me anymore either, but yeah, they do work. They do, actually. Not so much, out here in the water without anything going on, but depending upon the resolution that you set them for and everything else, they can actually cost a good handful of frames for some folks. And depending upon the aircraft, the mirrors are sometimes more or less useful than others. Give a little climb power here. There's France, and there's some bad guys. Kind of want to have a carrier to return to, so if that's the bomber group, we'll probably drop our stores and go after these guys. Thanks, Dr. Dracula. Appreciate the follow. And as with anything, adjusting the power settings is a new game in adjusting your trim. Kind of a constant, so if you don't have those bound to a HOTAS, put them there. Or if you don't have the buttons or space on the HOTAS, figure out some keybinds and some places where it's easy for you to get to. You'll be messing with them a lot. Now we're up above 4,500 feet. Let's go and reduce RPM power again. And put the supercharger on mid-blower. I'm going to put the autopilot leveler on just for a moment so we can nice and steady. And uncage the horizon. Make that a little more helpful there for us. All right. Yeah, looks like one Ju-88's going in. But we got a couple others. Guns are charged. And they are selected. We'll give them one pass with the stores on the wing since it's a bomber and not a fighter. And we'll see about getting to our mission target.
Springfield 1, engaging bandit at Bulls 252 for 35 at 11,000.
Oh, I don't like that he's in the sun. I also don't want to feel the wrath of his tail gunners. Try and slash across him here.
Bullseye 257 for 35. Springfield 1, in from the south, engaging ship at Bulls 258 for 35. Enfield 1, engaging bandit at Bulls 2804 45 at 600.
They might be getting away from us there. Alright, we'll let our cap protection take care of him.
Ship at Bullseye 258 for 35.
And we'll get back to where we need to be. Now I'm going to start with my centerline bomb. Get that ready. Verifying nose tail fusing. Got a little ways to go. Some of the reading that I've made there for the Corsair, she gets her best speed at about 16,000 feet. I was like, jet generally operates most efficient at high altitudes and high power settings. Propellers, not quite so much. There does tend to be a little more of an optimal altitude for them. It's not always super, super high.
Springfield 1, engaging bandit at Bulls 263 for 30 at 11,000.
I'll just leave the leveler on here for now. Take a peek, see everybody's. Oh, damn it. Another bomber out here. Oh, careful not to overspeed him. Oh, is he just doing the death circle? I hope he's not doing the death circle. I gotta go take a look because I don't want to chase around a dead bomber. He is doing the death circle. Flight model is perfect. That one's doing the death circle too. Those bombers are dead. I'm not going to fret about them. I don't know if I'd quite call that hilarious out of DCS or what, but it is something. Large aircraft like that seem to be in such good trim that even without any engine power, they just endlessly kind of do circles in the sky. Alright, so onwards towards our target, which is this base here, and is under attack. Engage whatever targets of opportunity we can when we get there. I will say she's very comfortable and cozy to fly in and fight in. Very quick, very sprightly. Which, for enthusiasts, it's not a surprise. The Spitfire is extremely agile, but I have personal issues with the 303 Windjet or 303 British round that they shoot in the machine guns. Autocannons are fine, but not a whole lot of ammunition for those, so be careful. And despite people enjoying quite thoroughly the P-51 Mustang, it's never been an aircraft that I've particularly cared for. More a P-47 or Corsair fan myself. I do kind of wish that we got the model that has 4 20mm autocannons in it rather than 650s, but 650s is okay too. And Corsair's mirrors too are adjustable. Kind of lean them out whatever direction you like. From what I understand right now, there's some issues with the actual pilot model for folks who enjoy using things like that. Or it will turn left when you turn left in the plane. Like rotate in the seat or something. I don't use them myself, so. Hard for me to say there. Yep, I made a Black Sheep reference earlier there for it. It's a show that I spent some time watching as well. I didn't realize it at the time. It's kind of something I stumbled into later on in life, but Pappy Boyington actually made a couple of guest appearances as a general on that show too. Kind of a nice feature. Yep, and I get the feeling that they're going to at least release an AI Zero. I'd like to see some other assets too, like zipping out to the Essex real quick, which is no worse for wear by the looks of it. Looks like Cap did their job. But yeah, it's got the Salmon P Chase that's out here, and it's got an LST that it's with it, but I'd really like to give it, you know, like a couple of Fletchers or something. I don't need to have a full-fledged battleship or a couple of heavy cruisers or anything else like that to go with it. Just a couple of destroyers would be a nice thing to include. All right, we are getting warmer. I believe, yeah, that's our target airfield there. There's some Elephant tanks there, some Panzer Vs, and AAA. Some of, or all of which might still be up by the time we get there. Yep, I get the impression that they're working on that, and you really almost have to when you throw in an Essex carrier and start putting aircraft like this one in. You know, up to now, pretty much everything that we've had has been European theater assets. But, I mean, they released the Marianas World War II map as a free thing. And now you got an Essex and the Corsair. Like, where's the Hellcat? Where's the Dauntless? Where's the TBD? And while you're at it, if you could throw in some Lexington carriers or, you know, maybe Enterprise and Wasp or Enterprise and Hornet. For me, though, I'm kind of the crazy person. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing a Casablanca or a Bogue fly off from a little dinky escort carrier. Yep, there you go. Go fight your nemesis and end up in a fist fight in a parachute. Okay, let's see, what do we got? That armor looks dead. It's got units on the map. Let's check it and see what we got. The Panzers are still up, Elephants are still up, and the Stugs are up. Alright, so we got 3 different bombing targets we can do. Let's run in. And about there looks good. Pickle. Bomb hit a little short, but it looks like it might have damaged the tanks. Let's get ready for the next one. Oh, Half-Life 3 is not coming out. Should know better than that. Real race is Elder Scrolls 6, Star Citizen, or DCS Navy F-4. I'm not sure who to bet on that one. Maybe it's Titanfall 3, maybe that's the answer. Alright, somewhere out here we got some Stoogs. I think that's them there. The elephants. Let's go bomb them. Probably put a longer fuse on those.
Flight. Engage targets of opportunity. Pilum, copy. Pilum, engaging target.
We still got all our control surfaces though. Whatever fragments we're picking up is somewhat minimal. I would like to see DCS Vietnam, to be perfectly honest. I love flying the F-4, especially since the F-15E is in the state that it's in right now.
Pilum, bombs away.
Pickle. Oh, center mass, you love to see it. I'd also like to see DCS AH-1 Foxtrot or Golf. Give me an old two-bladed Huey Cobra. Alright, what do we have left down there? Instead of salvo, I think we'll do singles. But with the F-100 already in the pipeline, the Panvara Tornado coming down range, which can be a good stand-in for the F-111. The Starfighter, supposedly in the pipeline somewhere. Like, give me a Vietnam map, make the things happen, and, you know, we'll make it work. Alright, a little wobbly. Straighten that trim out first. Doesn't do any good to shoot as a platform if I'm all wobbly as hell. Ooh. Someone biffed it. I'm definitely of the opinion that they should probably pay Razbam. And Razbam should sign its contracts and honor them to the letter, and that's what they should do. Work those things out. Those Ju-88s are in their continuous death spiral, which we can go look at the hilarity of that here in a minute. Of course, I'm also of the opinion that Nick Gray should probably stop buying warbirds and maybe sell a couple of them off to meet his debts rather than using the company to purchase his aircraft. We all have our hobbies. It's his company. He can largely do with it as he pleases, but he's got bills to pay and debts to do. Should probably solve those. Thanks, Imagine.jpg. I've not been on that one yet. At least not in a hot minute. I spend a lot of time flying on Pantheon servers, as it's, you know, home. But, worth to see. Yeah, I appreciate it. Glad to share them too. Alright, we'll cruise back home towards the CV-11. That's Intrepid, I think. And we'll put her back down on the deck. Let's make a nice gentle cruise for home. Yeah, very satisfied with this module here so far, and I know that there's some folks in PI that will be very interested to fly here as soon as the stream's done. So, as we wrap up with all that, we'll recap the lesson in the F4 for today, go through TAC view real quick, and probably call it there. It'll be a good time to grab some food and take a little bit of a break before getting back on the servers to play and fly. For the folks that we got here joining me, Saturdays I usually do a teaching stream. And I've been hitting the F4 really hard the last handful of months because that's the platform I've been spending most of my time in. Again, because the F-15 is not in a state where I can have other people fly it. Like, I know it works in the same condition that it has been since last year. And that because I own the module, I have access to it and can still fly it. Like my actual throttle that I'm actually using right now, it's a X56 throttle that I'm using and a VKB Gladiator stick. So I've got plenty of little rotators and dials and switches and toggles and things that I need for just about anything I want to fly. I'm enjoying it. It's a lot of fun to fly. Some of that is a little bit of bias as far as World War II Navy aircraft go. Like Corsair, Dauntless, and Devastator are kind of the top three. For the USAAF side of things, my preference tends to be towards bigger bombers, but the P-47 is another favorite that I like to take care of. Not really a Mustang or Spitfire person. Uh, 6,000 feet should be a good cruise altitude. We'll put the AP on while we're doing that. Yeah, no, I would sell other people's kidneys for a Dauntless. That would be a lot of fun to fly. Roll on over, put the spoiler brakes out, rake the deck with your twin 50s as if you're hoping for the best, and shove a 1,600-pound bomb down a ship's deck plating. All the while the tail gunner's panicking about somebody who's chasing me or something. I don't know, that's his problem, less than mine. Multi-crew is really the best. I enjoy a lot of multi-crew things. Especially if you get a good team working together, good crew. It's really the peak of DCS. Like, I know for some reason people say that single player is, you know, what gets played the most and that's what they cater to and blah, 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 blah. But multi-crew, mission on the server, get your squadron together, go out, hit the things. You know, especially when you're sitting there and you're getting in on somebody's back and you got, you know, Goose in the back seat going, you know, he's right behind us, we're going to do something about it, working his head back and forth. It's a great time. Sometimes that's me. Yeah, no, it was you most of the time. A lot of my other backseaters tend to be Chief, Trigger, Frost from time to time has been in the backseat with me. It's been a good trip. Lately, if we're doing things in the F-4, it's usually me in the backseat trying to tell you how to fly from the backseat. The F-4, the F-14, I've spent a lot of time doing multi-crew things like that, and the F-15E as well. I like that one a lot. I just wish it was better. Wish it was in a better state and some of the bugs were done. Oh, yeah, we were going to take a look at the Death Spiral. This has no crew in it. They've all left the machine. No engine power. But it is just trimmed and damaged enough to just do orbits in the sky. This one's still got the, oh yeah, the crew left through the bottom hatch too. It's got the torpedoes on board. It's doing 277 knots sustained with no propellers. Physics is just a list of things that don't happen. This one's doing the same thing. Whee! Nope, and flying fast enough that just about any propeller-driven aircraft is only going to be able to catch it, like in head-on passes. See, all we really have to do is like hook up like a generator or something to it in the center, like just kind of put like a, you know, a large electrical gearbox or some nonsense in a hot air balloon and attach the crank to the Ju-88 so as it goes around it, it can just, you know, generate a little bit of electricity. There, energy crisis solved. All right, let's call Mother.
Marshall 125. Marking mops 223 or 18. Angels 6. State 0.8.
125. Mother's weather is visibility 10 plus miles. Scattered clouds at 8,000. Altimeter is 2 9 3. Case 1 recovery expected BRC 72. Report see me at 10.
125.
Okay, BRC is 7.2. It's a base recovery course for those wondering what that stands for. That's our cap group up high. And our perpetual motion stream. Well, I mean, we are flying in a double wasp, right? So it's kind of like a Hornet, right? Maybe? No? About our 1 o'clock there. See if we can find our home away from home. You can do that in a Focke-Wulf 190. I hate saying that. I really do. They need an A6M. Just give us an A6M. And a Kate. Like if you had to put 2 in there, just give me a Kate and an A6M. It can be AI, it's okay. Here she is.
See you at 10.
125, update state, switch tower.
125, state 0.8.
Okay, master arm off. Deselect the guns. And we'll see if we can make JG.
Tower 125. Overhead Angels 1.5. State 0.7. 125. Tower, Roger. BRC 72. St. Louis, Charlotte. 125.
And the fun part about an axial carrier deck, which is the type of deck that we're landing on here, which we had in service all the way up through the start of the Jet Age. We're landing Phantom 1s and Banshees on straight carrier decks just like this, which is every bit as foolhardy and frightening as you would think it is. And before somebody went, hey, this is really wildly unsafe, maybe we should put an angle on this one, so that we're not, you know, accidentally using very expensive jets as wheel chocks. So the BRC is going to be the same as our final bearing course. We're not coming in at an angle. Go ahead and start reducing power. Little offset for the initial, but that's mostly fine. And fixable. We do have some friends that are parked down there, I think. Yep. 3 across the bow. The deck is otherwise clear and ready for service. Gears coming down, flaps are coming down. 3 down. Hook is coming down. And we're going to retrim. Now the Brits figured out that you do a curving landing approach and keep the deck in sight for as long as possible, because you are going to lose it under the nose. We are a little far for that. This is going to be a little more like a traditional sort of straight in at this stage carrier landing. We do want to try and come in as like a 3-point. So that way the hook actually engages with one of the 17-ish wires on the deck. Sadly, I don't have real paddles. We're down to about 100 knots, which will give us a little bit of room to take back off if we need to. A little high there though, spill some of that altitude. That's the sail, and we're going to go around. I might give people some crap for 8 or 10 bolters or what have you, but if a landing doesn't look good and you wave it off on your own as a pilot, because it doesn't look good, I'm not going to give somebody much crap for doing that. That's the right move. Temperatures are just a little cool. I'm going to bring the cowl flaps in just a touch. The lower power settings there on the engine. Try and keep it in that optimal range around 200 degrees C. A little high and a little quick, but plenty of time. And I know about him flying a Corsair. A lot of wear and tear on the decks from pilots coming in well above stall speed. Again, with some of the history things I've read about that. Boop. Bring the hook up. get the hell out of the way for the next guy. No, we did it. Nice full sortie. Sun's starting to go down a little bit. Just impressed by the sheer volume of guns and knowing that each one of these is probably serviced by 2 or 4 crew members. You know, like an aimer or a layer and a shooter. Someone to load. Little 3-inch 75s. Out here shooting all kinds of altitude fused rounds. The 5-inch guns doing the same with radar direction. All right. And if we just go back to idle there with the fuel mixture. We're home. All right, let's go take a look at the TAC view. And, you know, for the giggles, we'll go ahead and look at both missions. The F4 training mission that we did earlier for our usual Pilum Teaches time, and then this thing, just to see how things played. And again, for those who have either first time visited this channel or are unfamiliar with the program, TACView is a free program that you can spend a little bit of money on, which, you know, I like the guy who does it. They put together some good work, so I threw a little bit of money his way in support, but you don't have to. You can use it for free. But what it does is it interfaces with DCS, Falcon BMS, IL-2, Battle of X, all of those types of games, and it will take telemetry information from the game and convert it into something that you can use as a reference to see what all went on. It helps solve problems like, why did I spontaneously combust in DCS? What was going on that caused X, Y, or Z to happen? And TACView will show you that, you know, you did in fact have a MiG-29 who snuck up behind you, his radar was off, and he gave you a 27 ET up the ass, and you just weren't paying attention for it. Or you missed that SAM site or that gun platform. It does rely on the server allowing the export of such information in order to make that happen. But I find it a very useful tool for getting in here and doing debriefs with my pilots when I do teaching, training, and other instruction. Because it really takes away the whole nonsense of, well, I was doing this, that, or the other, and this happened. It's like, TACView is showing me a different story, and I don't have any latency or lag or jumping or stuttering with it. You know, so while the perception in the cockpit was that X, Y, or Z happened, it went really well at this area. And as soon as we're done here, I'll be going back up here soon. But it changes the perception, but from X, Y, or Z happened, and that's how it felt in the cockpit, to this is the reality of what occurred. Let's talk about what went right, what went wrong, you know, what was overloaded on the jet, that kind of thing, as a teaching measure. So the first thing we did was we were using cluster bombs, and again, after talking with Dad a little bit last week, we're going to try something in the level category, which was less possible because the dive computer just was not giving me any good accurate information for making that reality happen. So we're trying these in direct, and they were less than accurate. 1.2 seconds later, those things popped and landed short, very short, as a matter of fact. Select that. Almost 1,300 feet. So again, the caution there with what we were talking about using direct mode is you really do have to fly in parameters at the altitude and do everything you told the bombing calculator you were going to do in the order you were going to do it, or it's not going to work. So for example, the true airspeed setting that I had in the bombing computer was 550 knots true, with a release altitude of about 8,000 feet. We can see here that my true airspeed is right about on target. And in fact, at the moment of release, I'm at 552.9 knots. That is so in the ballpark. However, I'm also 700 feet higher than I wanted to be to release. All other factors were good. My pipper was aligned. It was on target. We were going with where I needed to go. That's the center, roughly, of the glass display, and we were at 135 units, or mil dots rather, depression, which puts it right about where the square was. Yeah, I would think that they should have gone a little bit long myself, but cluster bombs being cluster bombs, they also didn't stay in the canister for very long, because shortly after release they popped, close enough that it gave me a little bit of damage on the airframe. So now these are just free-flowing submunitions and are not riding in their streamlined case, so air resistance probably caused them to go short. Had I dropped 5 or 6 of them together with the same kind of ripple patterns, that probably would have been fine, because it would have, burst. Where's the bomblets? Like the first 2 were here, the next 3 or 4 would have brought it out to about there. Well, the Mark 20, the Rockeye 2s, use a time fusing rather than an altitude fusing. So I would have to fiddle about with how many seconds do I want before the canister itself separates and pops. We used it again, and this time at the moment of release, same parameters, I didn't change anything. The bombs are coming off the wing at that point. 556 knots true, so my airspeed was pretty much bang on the money, plus or minus 5 knots. 5 or 6 knots, like really solid. My altitude was a lot closer to where it needed to be. And they went just a little bit long. Missed the target area. I think I would rather use DT mode and get the radar involved, because those cluster bombs tend to be a lot more on target when I go that route with it. But we followed up with that with high drag bombs. So we're using Mark 82s. This was our target area again. We're coming right back on the same target. And again, I was wanting to be fairly quick, somewhere between 400 and 500 knots, and we are there. We're just about 500 knots there. ASL, we're 4,000 feet up. AGL, we're 718 feet up. So I'm a little high for dropping those, but it worked. And they went right where they needed to, right in the center of that target area. Close enough that it blew up the trucks, and we had one bomb fall slightly long, but that's usually why I drop these in 2s or 4s with that 0.25-ish millisecond interval. We came by and we repeated this one over the top of the SAM site. This one was practically perfect. Very Mary Poppins. Practically perfect in every way. 3,200 feet from the target. We are somewhat quick at 530 knots true, but 507 indicated, so very slightly fast for what I was looking at. So I was using the indicated knots marker there on the F4. We are at about 700 feet, just as we did before. Same thing, stick of 4 bombs go out, fins pop out, slow those things down. And the impacts were just before, 2 right in the center of the site, and just after, site eliminated. Again, our third pass over the diamond there with it to drop our last 4 bombs. Just as extra explodey examples. And same thing, we had 1 bomb drop slightly short of the target area, 2 drops into the area itself, and 1 drop long. Again, the reason why we do that is we want a little bit of target saturation. We want to make sure that we kill our target. because the next pass that I do here, I do a little more true to how it should be done over a combat area rather than trying to climb up and look over my shoulder for stream. We're coming in, we're low. Pickle, we stay low. We kick out countermeasures and flares as we move past. And we're using this natural terrain feature, this hill, to get away from anything that would try and come after us. The next thing we did was we picked a spot of road and we dropped Durandals on it. Which it's no road there, so it's hard to see, but we do land and we took off, and right before we switched over to Corsair time, we came out here to Paiute Mesa and dropped Durandals on that. And the same principle applies here. We want to make sure that we are low because we're going to be dealing with very high drag, parachute slowed bombs that will angle themselves down and then fire their rocket motors to drill into the concrete of the runway to blow up underneath it, which is the whole point behind how those bombs work and cause the kind of damage that can't be very quickly paved over and made ready for use in a matter of hours. Like, they've actually got to fill the hole in first. Line up on our runway. We did a little bit of math for the number of bombs we were wanting to drop, and I calculated roughly a like 0.4, 0.5 second interval to make sure that we get the most amount of bomb on target. We are here low, same thing as we were doing with the high drag bombs for the Mark 82s. We're somewhere between 700 and 800 feet. We were flying at just about 500 knots. Slightly slow on that one, but that's okay because it was between 4 and 5. Start dropping the bombs just as the runway begins to disappear under the nose. And those Durandals, the rocket motors, begin to fire as they get down into a mostly straight down position. Just boom, boom, boom. And in fact, if I'd released just a little bit later, not very much, literally just a half a breath later, that bomb there would have been where this bomb was, and I would have had one more bomb out here on this runway at about that spot by the spacing. Cooked runway. And then we go home. Let's go ahead and pull up the Corsair mission that we did. Play around a little bit and see what all was going on with that. Got our cap aircraft, we got all our other aircraft stacked up and lined up. Zoom, 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 zoom. We go. There are dogfights aplenty happening out there, and bombers that are now perpetual motion machines. Oh, he did shoot at me. He just got rid of his bombs. And this was the thing that I was kind of afraid of as we were coming up on it. I didn't want to get stung by the tail on the Ju-88. Because on the Ju-88 you have an extra person in the main pilot's compartment who is operating 2 machine guns, one at a time. Kind of in the back portion, a little bug house window there. It's to cover the top. But you've also got a guy who's in the gondola, who's usually got a weapon. And I didn't want to get shot by him. But they took some shots at the aircraft, and I was in just the worst spot for him. Wasn't able to completely get over to be able to hit me or lead me. But he's trying. He's doing his best. But Fritz is going far faster than I can catch up with on him as a 2-engine platform. And I had a bunch of extra crap on my wings and in my fuselage. So I allowed him to become somebody else's problem since we had cap that were dedicated to the job there. The Brits are doing their best, giving it to those 109 or 190s. I realized those guys were death spiraling and I wasn't going to catch them, so I just gave up on that. And meanwhile, this base just gets completely dumped upon by the B-17s, which is why they're there. They did a really good job taking out most of the air defenses. Which our Army Air Corps people took care of next. Coming in, zapping and doing their thing. And the wingman show up. Says what's going on in the airfield. Pick a spot, and here we go. Actually, didn't we dropped another bomb there first, didn't we? Yeah, right there. Short, but sufficient to cause damage to one truck. I think our next two were a lot better. Down, diving down, pickle, there goes the bomb. Right next to the tracks. Sad that it didn't kill him, but this one did. Dead Stooks. Have rockets. Rockets and some gunfire. Back when 50 cals could at least do something a little more than just tickle a tank in the right place. Hit him on our way past. And oops. And back down on the deck. A lot of information that TACView does provide for folks. Very helpful, especially if you're looking at your own performance. It will take care of a few things. There's some extra lines here that we can see. The first is this teal line with a cross on it. That is the head tracking, where my head tracking is looking relative to the center of the field of view. So it's not going to be exact all the time, but you can get an idea about, like, oh yeah, no, I totally saw this fight that was going on over here. Did you? Did you? Because at no point, except for like right here, were you even looking in the direction that things were going on. Oh, right. Yeah, got it. Does not work for other people in your flight. It's a self-reported thing because that's extra information that it gets from you, the player, rather than the server itself. The server's information will look like everything else here. And it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm following somebody flying through here. That's a Spitfire, so we're going to use Trigger's name. Trigger is out here. He's doing Spitfire things, shooting people up, doing his thing. That's the kind of information that you'll see there. And actually, it's a good one to look at in the dogfight, because the other one that we got is this pink line, which will darken up as G load is increased as a quick visual reference. For the aircraft in motion without having to just look at the actual telemetry and see that he's doing a 2.6 G turn. Even accounts for it in the negative. Not that you want to do a whole lot with that with these birds, but possible. And adjust the trails. The other thing that's useful is this little green line. Shows that you have line of sight between the two things that are selected. It's unobstructed. Whereas if I go with this gun platform, the dotted line indicates that it's obstructed by something, like terrain. The little orbs, of course, are the lethal zones of various different guns and SAM systems, that kind of deal. And also shows search radar ranges in that regard. So a lot of information that TACView provides at your fingertips that you can use to help assess yourself or other pilots. And it really is just a useful thing every once in a while to go back and look at something that happened or record good moments when something goes really, really right and you just need something to go back and look at and you weren't recording something visually or audibly or whatever like you're doing through Twitch or something similar. So, a lot of things to really kind of take into account and play with on that. With that, though, that is the lesson for today. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up stream-wise with the way that we usually do things here. We have our week-to-week things on display. Today was Saturday. We had Pilum Teaches DCS starting at 9 a.m. Pacific. Monday, we're going to be back just for some general flying and things. Might be with the Corsair, might be with the F-4. Not sure what we'll get into yet, but should be a good time regardless. We're going to follow up with that with some classic games. We've been playing through Morrowind, and I am just about to go pay a visit to Dagothur proper and go break his heart. And then we'll get on into the Tribunal and later Blood Moon expansions as things go, which is always a good time. Friday, we're back with Arma 3. I don't know what exactly we'll be doing with that just yet, but we'll see how that goes. And mid-July, I've done 24-hour streams right around my birthday time the last couple of years. That's a little bit of a pain, especially as I'm in my 40s, but we'll probably do something in the 12-hour range. Sometime in mid-July, I'll have a date for that here for you very soon, probably in the next week or so. Looking to do DCS and Gray Zone for a lot of that, which should be a lot of fun to play and play with and all of that. And we'll see what we can do and where I might see you. With that, I appreciate the follows, the likes, the subscribes. All those things keep the channel moving. I happily accept any Bezos dollars you are willing to throw at me, but that is not, of course, required. That is entirely just up to you. As a subscriber benefit, though, if we wanted to arrange one-on-one time for something, that is a benefit that I will allow for the subscribers, so that's always an option to consider as well. Catch this and other VODs on the YouTube channel at Pilum Romar. You'll see a lot of the gaming craziness that we go through on a time-to-time basis on that one. With that, always ask for consent, try to communicate as best you can with your partners, try to be genuinely decent human beings, and I will catch up with you later on. Thanks for watching and flying, folks. Pilum out.